you this morning. Firstly, what do you make of the Prime Minister's letter to the nation that if it calls for it, he will impose stricter measures? I mean, do you think that's an inevitability?
Now, listen, I don't really care. I'll let you listen to what this guy says in a moment. But you see, they're still pushing it. They're still pushing it. Now, in terms of what's going on, let's talk straight. This coronavirus, as was H1N1, as was the swine flu, the bird flu, the Hong Kong flu, all of them. Coronavirus is this year's flu. Now just get over it. There are no flu figures for this year because this is the flu. But they're pretending that it's something else. And the figures of deaths and people who've caught this thing are way below what has happened in previous years. It's a minor flu, it's a feeble flu, but they're still pushing it for all it's worth. I mean, just listen to this guy, a few seconds of this guy, because I don't want to waste too much of my 15 minutes on this.
I think the reason I think that is because people need to make sure they do the social distancing, and the measures that have been put in place for a very, very good reason. We need to follow that advice, and we need to make sure that we actually maintain the social distancing to lower the numbers of people infected. It's interesting to note that one person infects 2 to 3 people. You halve that, then you don't get such a greater spread. That one person can infect about 400 other people in onward progression, whereas if you've got half of those people being infected, that dramatically reduces that infection down to about 15. If you reduce it down even further, you lower the number of people infected to a very low number, about 5. So the social distancing really does work. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Prime Minister has put this letter out, to make sure that people really get the gravity of why social distancing is so important.
Suggestions over the last few days that what might actually happen over the next few weeks is we'll see stricter measures then.
No, that's enough of that, because it's all rubbish. Everything he's just said is absolute garbage. What's going on now is backtracking. They're calling this backtracking. Oh look, everything we did has worked, because the flu is dying out. This coronavirus is dying out. It's just petering out. It's already petered out in China. It's petering out in South Korea. It's petering out all over the place. And the number of deaths recorded this year, according to the figures for this coronavirus, are so small. Any other year, we would have been calling ourselves, they'd be telling us, oh, the flu jab worked this year, didn't it? This is a nonsense. This is an absolute nonsense. And now there's all this talk about breaking the bank to pay out everybody's wages. I mean, where the hell do people think the money's going to come from to pay everybody's wages? All these people stuck out of work. They're virtually unemployed. They've destroyed jobs. Now, in America, they're already talking about pushing this Green New Deal nonsense. Now, that Green New Deal is some attempt to make us all equal. And to make us all equal, that will mean a drastic reduction in our standards of living. Get over it. We are the rich people, apparently. All I've got is a few trinkets. I've got a computer, but I see all these guys coming in from Africa. You know, these poor people. Well, they got smartphones. They're all stood on the quay, looking down at their smartphones, wiping this off and that off and all the rest of it. I haven't got a smartphone. Right, so when they get here, what are they going to find? Well, here we are. We've got our smartphone and there's free Wi-Fi all over the place, and we don't even have to pay for our abonnements because George Soros is paying all that for us. You know, it's all just a nonsense. And I've just been listening to a guy. I mean, a very similar thing happened. When the attack on London Bridge was going on, the original attack, the first attack, when that was going on, a young kid who wanted to just record what was happening. He was there with his cine camera, and he was just recording the scene. And he went down to a local hospital to ask how many of the injured they had received. And the hospital, the door was locked. He couldn't even walk into the hospital. And the security man saw him at the entrance and came walking up and asked him what he wanted. And the guy just asked how many casualties you'd received. And the guy said, from what? From the attack. Oh, that was a drill. Now that's it. Now, the guy reported that, but of course that'd be just hearsay now because, well, it's all white from the television. Now, the same thing happened when the attack happened on Westminster Bridge. Now, I was watching that live. I just happened to be online when that started, and I got straight onto the television version of what was going on, and you could see people running down the road screaming from the bridge. Okay, screaming, yeah. And then they got to a certain point, and a cop on duty there had to raise that blue and white plastic stuff that they mark areas off with to allow them to get past. And then I looked around a little bit farther, and you find the scene of where the cop had been stabbed or whatever happened to the cop. All right, and then you see another picture of exactly the same scene where everything was changed. So there was actually two completely separate photographs of the scene where the cop had been killed. I mean, it's all the nonsense. And on that occasion, on the Westminster Bridge occasion, people on the scene were asking the question, why were the gurneys being wheeled into the Marriott Hotel or whatever, instead of going a few hundred yards further on to the hospital? And that's because all the crisis actors were being paid off in the Marriott Hotel. I mean, the whole thing is a nonsense. And now you can see all these things, these COVID-19 key facts. Why have we never seen any of this when we've had a serious flu year? I mean, this is just a nonsense. It's all just a nonsense. This is this year's flu, and it's not very serious. But they want you to believe that it's something completely different. Well, it's not. I mean, it wasn't only those bridge attacks. The second attack on London Bridge was a total farce. I mean, I actually published two versions of what happened, both of them broadcasted by Sky News. And they completely changed the story. The second tale they presented was completely different from the first tale. Now, that was two versions of the same event, and was presumably were meant to believe that the both of them are true. Well, both of them cannot be true. And yet, what I put up a clip, both of the clips together, anybody could see that they're false. But they start looking around to make excuses for the fake news. I mean, that's where we're at. Nobody's bloody interested in truth anymore.
Hello and welcome to Sophie Ridge on Sunday. Things will get worse before they get better. That's the bleak warning from the Prime Minister this morning, after the number of coronavirus-related deaths in the UK rose beyond 1,000. Even Boris Johnson has...
Well, what a load of absolute bollocks. I was going to record something. I thought maybe she's getting over this coronavirus crap. But no, here we go again. There's Boris and the Prince and the Health Minister and some civil servant. Oh, look, we're positive. What, they've got, a cold? I mean, they got a bit of a runny nose. Oh dear me, oh. Look, in past years, I've been working with people, and you go up to them in the morning to say good morning, and they say, don't get too close because I've got the flu, and that's all. And I've never caught it. It doesn't jump from them to me. You know, anybody who does a little bit of investigation will find that's not the way these things work. I mean, they don't even know. They don't even know what a virus is exactly. To me, I mean, being a total cynic, to me, a virus is an excuse. They put up a virus, and the virus is is just a stunt. And then anybody that dies, oh, that was the virus that killed them. Well, when somebody catches pneumonia, it's never been because of coronavirus, and yet old people regularly die of pneumonia. But this year, suddenly, that pneumonia was provoked by coronavirus. And this is what's going on. And all these old people in hospital who are dying are dying of things like pneumonia, and yet it's being presented as a casualty of coronavirus. And it's happening all over the place. It's happening everywhere. People have been ignoring the fact because they wanted to push this business. I've been asking for the flu figures for weeks and weeks and weeks. Where are the flu figures? And you don't get anything. There's nothing. There's no mention of it. And yet this is the flu season. That's why we've got the coronavirus here. It's the flu, and this is the flu season. And yet there's nobody will come up with any figures for who's died of flu. They all come up with this business of, the rate of people catching the virus is something like 0.1 per 100,000, which doesn't mean a bloody thing. It's all nonsense, and and then the people who die of it is not marked. They don't mark the number of deaths. And yet, with this stuff, let's see what Sophie's has cut off the talking, and let's see what Sophie's up to. No, put the talking on for a second.
It was to get testing for NHS staff. I can't emphasise how serious the problem is. We don't have the luxury of time anymore. Why is it that 2 weeks on, you still can't tell us when all NHS staff are going to get tested?
Well, we are increasing the number of tests, and that's why so much effort and energy has been directed by scientists and by others in order to increase the number of tests that take place. As I say, 10,000 people being tested today.
Now, can you understand? That's what's normally referred to as waffle, because what's actually happening, they've never tested people for flu. I've never even heard of any friend of mine or anybody I know being offered a test when they have show signs of got a cold, that they better check to see if they've got the flu. You just have your cold and you get over it. And people now, apparently now, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people who've had these so-called slight signs of whatever you want to call this thing, the corona or the flu or a cold, and immediately they're seized upon. Oh, that's corona. And that's it. And then there's the other thousands and thousands who've never even mentioned that they've got anything. And yet here they are, they want to test people now. Well, what will the test do? What will the test do? So they test somebody. Oh, yes, you're already in quarantine, aren't you? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so we've tested you and you've got it. So what does that mean? They have to go out with it in town with an I've got the plague flag, holding that if they want to do the shopping so that everybody can run away screaming. What's supposed to happen? I mean, it's a nonsense. This is what is called building up immunity within the herd, if you like. That's the way it works. You get a flu and then you never get it again. In the same way you get measles and then you never get it again. So this idea of continual jabs for children to stop them getting the measles is it's a load of crap. And this is being pushed by this government. And there's something else going on now. You see, ask yourself where the money is coming from. Now that they've shut down absolutely everything, it's all shut down because of this flu. Where is the money coming from to pay all there's something like 10 million people in the service industries who are going to lose their jobs. Where's the money coming from? Where is it? Where is this money? You have to generate wealth. Do you understand? You have to generate it. They've got me. I am one of these small businesses and I am stuck. I can't even buy a pot of glue. That's how bad things are. And are they going to pay me? I don't think so. People like me won't be paid. I mean, this whole business is an absolute nonsense, and there is something behind it, something serious behind it. And I've already said, I think, they're going over to electronic money, and it was mentioned on a program that I was listening to a few moments ago. And I think somewhere, and they were already talking about wallets. And I've already said that in one of my previous posts. All of it will be paid. When they start paying it out, it'll be electronic. Thanks for listening.